Hello, and welcome to another video of Tier Maker. And I did say in the comments in the last video, this was going to be the last one I do for a while, but that was just going to be the last zombie idea I do. I'm not going to discuss anything more zombie related in the future, since the idea of zombies as well as the concept is so oversaturated and it's been talked about to death, really. I mean, literally, kind of funny. But yeah, I think that's enough talking about zombies. But today we're going to do a complete 180 and talk about an entirely different genre with different tropes and different, a different style to it. And that's the gangster flicks or movies, as well as just mob movies in general. And the person who made this was actually me. And yeah, if you want to find this, that's my name in real life, as well as just that's my name on Twitter as well. And you can search this up pretty easily. I'm pretty sure I made this public, but if I didn't, let me know in the comments. With that out of the way, let's talk about each of these movies. I've seen all these movies. I made this myself, I handpicked, so I made sure I picked movies that I know pretty well, that I'm pretty familiar with, that also resonate with me to a degree. Now, let's do this. Now, to start things off, we have Casino. This is one of my favorite movies ever made. It's definitely probably my top 10. I think it's very underrated. I know Rotten Tomatoes, it's only like an 80% or something along those lines, but I I I love this movie. I put it in high regards. I have in high regards, for that matter. I put an S tier. I love the duo of Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. I think those two, when they work together, when they act together, they make magnum opuses in a way. They make very high quality movies together, especially with their acting and their performances. Their performances in this movie are they're very disturbing to a degree because Joe Pesci's very violent. He skull crushes a guy with the skull crush machine. I forgot what it's called, but it's a form of torture, and he just skull crushes someone. He stabs someone several times, like close to death with a pencil, kind of touching on the John Wick meme there. But yeah, Joe Pesci did it before John Wick, and he's malicious in this movie. He is relentless. Even though he's not the tallest guy in the world, he is very intimidating. His height does not show how intimidating he really is. And Robert De Niro is kind of a snake in this. He betrays his wife a lot. He has a gold digger wife, and it's a very disturbing movie. It only goes downhill the longer you watch the movie, the more it progresses. And what I love about this movie and more, it happened in real life. This is based off true events. The people that they're portraying actually existed, and that's kind of similar to Goodfellas, which I'll talk about in a minute. Now, The Godfather. I mean, without The Godfather, or even Godfather Part 2 to an extent, none of these movies would exist. At least I would think. So I'd put both of these in S tier. I didn't include Godfather Part 3, mainly because I haven't seen it, and I have only heard negative thoughts about it, but I may make a video on it entirely in a separate video. But these two movies, I think they're equal. I almost like Godfather Part 2 more, but I love both these movies, especially the characters. I think John Gazelle does a good job, Al Pacino does a good job, Marlon Brando did a good job, even in his later career. Like in this, he did an outstanding job. I think he was in his 40s or 50s. He did a great job. And I think, well, I know the highlight of these two movies is Al Pacino, of course, but in the sequel, Robert De Niro does such an outstanding job. He really makes you immersed into the crime lord lifestyle. I mean, I find his acting so outstanding, mainly because of the fact that he speaks only Italian in the sequel, because he played, or I guess you could say prequel, arguably, because it's a flashback. It's like the 1910s, but he played such a cool prequel version of Marlon Brando's character, Vito Corleone, and I think his character is just outstanding. Marlon Brando played such a great job too. They both portrayed Vito very well, and Michael is excellently played by Al Pacino, and James Caan, who sadly passed away, played such an outstanding character as Sonny, and John Gazelle played a good job too. And those two movies together, I think, they laid the foundation of mob movies as a whole. Without those two movies, none of these would exist, even if not all these movies are gangster. Or mob, I mean. Some of these movies kind of intertwine both lifestyles, but Goodfellas, I think this might be the last one I'd put in S tier, but maybe I'd put Scarface in S tier as well, but besides the point, I think, well, Goodfellas, I would put with these three other movies. It has just as much of an impact on the genre as the other three, and I think Ray Liotta, who also tragically passed away this year, did a phenomenal job in this movie. This is really, his best take on the mob. He's one of the best actors who ever played in a mob movie, Ray Liotta. I know a lot of people who don't like him in this role, some YouTubers I've watched, but Ray Liotta does such a phenomenal job. He's so flexible too. He's in so many other types of movies, genres. He was even in, I think, Silence of the Lamb in one of the movies, and he did a pretty neat job in that as well. But this movie really is the highlight of his career. It's his best movie. And Joe Pesci is also in this, as well as Robert De Niro, and they did a good duo as well. Well, it's a trio in this movie because each of their points of view really matters, but they mainly focus on Ray Liotta's point of view as someone who, as a child, gets thrown into the lifestyle as a mobster, Italian mobster, even though he's not Italian completely, but he still does a great job. And it's also based on real events, which is really neat. And I love the outro scene where they play Sid Vicious's My Way, that cover. I think that just displays how wonderful this movie is. They play such good music for the times. Since this mainly focuses on the 60s and 70s of the mobster life, when it starts to deteriorate, when the mob family deteriorates over time, since the height of it was in the 20s, but this shows the downfall, and that was pretty cool. Legends, I don't have much to say on this. I think Tom Hardy did a cool job as playing the twins, but he's the only highlight of the movie. He's the only actor I think he gave it his all. He did an outstanding performance. His mannerisms for each of the characters, his attitude was just spectacular. Felt very realistic, but the rest of the characters I couldn't say the same. Reservoir Dogs, I think I'm going to put an A tier. I don't have Pulp Fiction on this because I've only seen it like once and I don't really remember it, but Reservoir Dogs has Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, and many other great actors, even Steve Buscemi's in it, and it's a great movie to just unwind to and just see the chaos just spiral out of control. There is so many chaotic moments in the movie, and I recommend watching it in its entirety. It's not that long of a film, and it's outstanding. Scarface with Al Pacino, another great Al Pacino movie. I haven't seen that many movies of him, but this movie is also great. I don't think I'd put it with Godfather, but maybe when I'm done with this tier list, I might move it up a notch. But Scarface, I would put here. Al Pacino's done such a good job in movies each decade. I feel like he's had an amazing movie come out. Despite his age, I think he's somewhere around 40 when this came out, but he's still doing an outstanding job. He still seems so youthful in this movie, and his character is full of so much angst and just anger towards capitalism. and the hypocrisy he ends up showing by conforming to that later on, to the criminal lifestyle, is pretty ironic too. And there's so many cool one-liners in this as well. Scarface is such an amazing character. Tony Montana, and he's the highlight of this movie. Taxi Driver. Now, I could see an argument made why this shouldn't be on here, but this is a Robert De Niro movie, and there's some gangster moments in this, like how there's a pimp in this movie he ends up killing, as well as some other mobsters. I would put this A tier, because many people think this inspired the recent Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, but I could see the connection, but I don't really feel that way. But even then, it's just, you really feel for Travis, or the character that Robert De Niro is playing. There's many theories that he is a veteran from the Vietnam War, and he's torn up, has PTSD, but he ends up becoming the better guy, and he ends up saving a girl, or a teenage girl, from the life of sex trafficking, and that was pretty neat. But he's also not a great human being. He has some conflicting moments, which makes him feel human, makes him feel genuine. So I'd put it in A tier along with these two movies. Irishman, the Netflix movie that Martin Scorsese made. I don't really like it. I know that's something many might not expect, but this movie, if it was made 20 years prior, even 30 years prior, back in the days of Goodfellas or Casino, it could have been great. But they're in their 70s, and Al Pacino is hitting 80 when this was created, so they shouldn't be making movies like this anymore, because there are scenes where they're hitting people, and it seems so rubbish. It feels like they could have chose other actors to play them, because they're portraying people in their 30s even though they're 70, and the effects they used on them, and then I guess you could say CGI, does not look great. They still look like they're 70-year-old men playing 30-year-old men, and it just doesn't seem accurate. And I'm not sure if this is based off a true story, but I don't really care, since the movie did not execute what they're trying to focus on well. And I love Martin Scorsese, I love his movies, but this is not a great one. Many like it, but I don't understand it. Many people sympathize or give the excuse, oh, they're old, but they're still doing a good job. I think they're trying their best, but it's just the overall execution isn't very cohesive. So it lowers it down a couple points. The Town. I would put A tier. A tier. I think Jeremy Renner did a good job, as well as Ben Affleck, which even he directed this movie, and this makes me think that he should move towards directing rather than acting. I think Ben Affleck, even though he's featured in this movie, he should do more movies like this that are similar to the modern day crime lord path, as well as just drug use. I think he should focus more on that rather than playing Batman, or his version of it. And that alone, I think this movie's excellent. I think the overall acting is really good, especially the bank rob scene, as well as the scene where so many of them end up dying. The four guys who are trying to do another heist, it just fails. I love that scene. And I love how he ends up falling in love with a woman that he and his men kidnapped for ransom, the police, which is pretty neat. It's a really cool premise. I'd almost put it in S tier, but I don't think it has the same influence as these. This movie's not as mainstream as these. Not even close. Untouchables. I mean, the standout role in this movie, and the only standout role to a degree, is Robert De Niro. He plays Al Capone so well, and it almost seems like he's very similar to him. He doesn't look like him at all in this movie, but he still portrays him very well. His mannerisms, I think the scene where he's in the dining room with his other mobster friends and he just bashes that one guy's brains in with a baseball bat, I think that was the best scene in the movie. There are some other cool actors in this, like Sean Connery, but I don't think this is the best Sean Connery movie. Not even close. This isn't. He doesn't excel in this movie, but I think Robert De Niro does. The few scenes that he is in, he excels. But other than that, I think, I'm going to put in B tier. It's not even close with these movies, but I think Robert De Niro's overall performance is magnificent, and it's not as good as these movies. I think Taxi Driver is a better performance, but he nails Al Capone so well. He blows it out of the park with that one. And the last one I'm going to discuss is Wolf of Wall Street. Many also wouldn't, similar to Taxi Driver, uh, assign this to this genre. They wouldn't put this with the other ones, but I would, mainly because of the impact, and it was also made by Martin Scorsese, and he gave it a real mob vibe, even if they didn't have mobsters in it. They were just corrupt, higher up people who were scamming people, and I mean, most of these people are scamming people anyway in this tier list. The characters they're playing as or portraying. I would put Wolf of Wall Street. You know what? No, I wouldn't put it next to these movies. I'd put it in B tier. I think The Town and these movies are better, but I think The Wolf of Wall Street shows how good Jonah Hill can play a serious character, even if it's a little comedic in this and amusing. I mean, after coming from Superbad and movies like that, I did not expect him to play such a serious character. And Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, he's good as usual. He's good in almost everything besides a couple movies. And he really plays the main character very well. And I love the cameo where the one Jordan Belfort is actually in this, which is kind of funny. When he, at the end, when he's there, that cameo is really funny. When Leonardo's selling the pen, I love that scene. That's probably the best scene in the movies, when he's selling the pen to people. That's the best scene. But besides that, a lot of scenes seem glamorized. A lot of them seem just like shock value, especially with like the nude orgy scene and all that. A vast majority of this movie is just plain old shock value, and I'm not a fan of that. But other than that, I think it's a good movie. I think the best role in this movie, or performance, is probably Leonardo DiCaprio. He nails Jordan Belfort. He really plays the character like it's really him. And his mannerisms, and his anger, and his manipulation. He plays the best con man in this movie. And one of the best con man portrayals I've seen in a long time. Yeah, so I think this is the tier list. I think I'm done. And let's see if I want to move any. I think Scarface stays there. I was going to move it up, but I don't think I am. Yeah, I think these will stay. Yeah, this is it. That's all the movies I picked, because I've seen all these. There are other mob movies I haven't seen, like, I'm trying to think of other movies I haven't seen that are mob related. I could probably think of some, but not on the top of my head right now. Bronx Tale, I think that's what it's called. I don't remember what it's called, but I haven't seen that. As well as Sopranos, I haven't seen that. But that's a show. But I mean, it still sounds great, especially since it has Spider from Goodfellas in it, which is kind of funny, as well as Ray Liotta's wife that's in it. But yeah, if you have any recommendations for other movies, as well as The Sopranos, if you think it's good, let me know in the comments. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.